Greetings again. While essential nutrition in our food decreases, as mentioned in the earlier video, dangers increase in air, water, and our environment. I had mentioned about pesticides and the need to be alert to what's happening in pesticides. This is a spooky book. Focus on our environment began in 1962 when Rachel Carson wrote The Silent Spring. And the Chief Justice William O. Douglas wrote a little bit of a review about the book back in 1962. He says, "This book is the most important chronicle of this century for the human race. The menace of insecticides is what she deals with. Man's lethal inventions have contaminated the air, the earth, and the waters. There are 500 new chemicals a year, and they contain elements whose immediate and long-range effect are wholly outside the limits of biological experience. The poisons that man uses to bombard the earth are really biocides, not insecticides, because they enter the tissues of plants and animals and even penetrate the germ cells to alter the structure of heredity. They destroy the enzymes that protect the body from harm. They block the oxidation process. They start malignancies." Mrs. Carson, he goes on to say, brings insecticide after insecticide up for review, and as the story unfolds, the horror mounts. One of the chlorinated hydrocarbons is so powerful that even after floors have been sprayed and washed to destroy, the house is so contaminated as permanently to destroy the functioning of a healthy child. Persons have died merely from handling the bag in which the insecticide was shipped, or died from drifting spray used in a potato patch. The robin dies as it eats the earthworm that has stored the insecticide in its body. The bald eagle dies as it eats fish that have accumulated the poisons of sprays washed into the waters from the fields by the rains. When forests are sprayed against the spruce budworm, the streams become rivers of death. The insects on which fish eat and feed, as well as the fish, die. Waters that drain sprayed fields find their way into underground streams. Lawns of suburbanites are saturated with lethal poisons aimed at crabgrass and ragweed. For the spray kills the other vegetation, which in truth would be the ragweed's real enemy if no sprays were used. Nature can use her systems of checks and balances. She did it throughout eons of time, long before insecticides arrived. And he concludes by saying, if the Bill of Rights contains no guarantee that a citizen shall be secure against lethal poisons distributed either by private individuals or by public officials, it is surely only because our forefathers, despite their considerable wisdom and foresight, could not conceive of such a problem as we face today. 7 million tons of toxins go into the environment every year. Since 1930, 75,000 new toxins have been developed in laboratories, used in paints, etc., and only 7% have been studied. For example, estrogen. 1 drop of gin in 700 railroad cars of tonic water would equal the amount of estrogen needed to feminize a human fetus. That minuscule amount. We have air pollution. We have a very thick book on our poisoned earth and sky. And these are 20 years old. You may have noticed chemtrails. Not contrails, but chemtrails. Since 1997, when you see a jet fly through the sky, the tail dissolves within minutes if it's a contrail. Contrails above 33,000 feet develop when hot engine exhaust momentarily condenses ice crystals into pencil-thin vapors that quickly vanish behind a jet. However, chemtrails look initially like contrails, but they're thicker and they remain extended across the sky, and they're sprayed in X's or tic-tac-toe grids, cross hatches, parallel lines, and instead of dissipating, chemtrails expand. They open into wispy formations, and they persist for hours. They are composed of aluminum barium, aluminum oxide, bacilli and moles, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and Pseudomonas fluorescens, Streptomyces, Cerati, all sorts of, human white blood cells, restrictor enzymes used in research laboratories to snip and combine DNA, the other bacilli and other toxic molds capable of producing heart disease and meningitis, as well as upper respiratory distress, carcinogen, zinc, cadmium sulfate. After chemtrails lingered, spread, and covered entire skies and fell, reports of illnesses increased substantially. Persistent hacking coughs, upper respiratory and intestinal distress, pneumonia, fatigue, lethargy, dizziness, disorientation, aching joints and muscles, nosebleed, bloody stools, depression, anxiety. You might want to do a Google search for chemtrails. They were developed apparently for biowarfare. Our food supply is being sprayed. They want to see how close they are to a finished product by testing it on us citizens. Man-made filaments of the type developed by both industrial and military entities. South Africans reported web-like filaments falling from an aircraft, forming a blanket-like appearance across vegetation, telephone poles, and fences, and Ebola soon followed. The University of Michigan lab found Pseudomonas fluorescens in the material E. coli, salmonella, and anthrax. So there's problems not only with our soil, there's problems with what we breathe. There are problems with what we put on our skin. We've all been taught that we're supposed to use suntan lotion. Well, make sure that the ultraviolet B rays can get to your skin so the vitamin D will be produced, because vitamin D is what will protect you. Dark skin doesn't produce vitamin D very well, so consequently Africans who moved from Somalia to Minneapolis or to Finland and Sweden have tremendous increases, 2,000 times plus, of autistic births, apparently because of a vitamin D deficiency. You need vitamin D, and you get it by letting the sun penetrate your skin. But this is the UVB rays, not the A rays. See, the danger with chemical sunscreens is because, number one, 9% goes into your blood causing toxicity. Don't ever put anything on your skin that you wouldn't eat or drink because it's absorbed. And number two, it blocks the UVB rays. Those are the rays you don't want to block. That's what produces vitamin D to keep you healthy, and also to protect your skin from skin cancers, that sort of thing. They inspire the body to make vitamin D. The trouble is sunscreen doesn't protect your body against ultraviolet A rays, the bad ones. They are the ones that cause melanoma. So consequently, by using sunscreen, we don't get the vitamin D, and the ultraviolet A radiation penetrates with an increase of 2,000% in melanoma. here in the United States where we use chemical sunscreens. We also have a problem with oxybenzene, which is part of the sunscreen that feminizes little boys and can prevent their testicles from descending. Metal sunscreen, like those containing titanium dioxide, is much safer. In fact, the chemical ones, I've understood, are illegal in Europe. Only the metal sunscreens are permitted. Then we have, of course, if it's not in the air, it might be in the water, which you should worry about, why you should worry about what's in the water. 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated. Lack of water is the #1 trigger of daytime fatigue. Even mild dehydration will slow down one's metabolism by 3%. And 37% of Americans, the thirst mechanism is so weak that it is mistaken for hunger. 1 glass of water will shut down midnight hunger pangs for almost 100% of the dieters studied in a University of Washington study. A mere 2% drop in body water can trigger fuzzy memory, short-term memory, and trouble with basic math, things like that. So we need to drink a lot more water. But the problem is, there are microbes in the water, there's arsenic in the water. Arsenic levels have been raised to comply with city standards. There's lead in the water. The majority of water is still delivered through lead pipes, and lead, of course, as you know, is linked to brain, kidney, and central nervous system disorders. There's radon. Everybody's heard about lead poisoning, but now we have plastic pipes that emit dangerous gases. The EPA says up to 8 million in the United States have harmful levels in their drinking water. Dairy farmers use iodine rubs to sanitize cows' udders before and after milking. Well, the iodine drips into the milk and shows up in milk products. Virtually all adults over age 50 now have thyroid cancer, according to a study printed in the New York Times on November 8, 1994. We have NTBs in water, hydrogen sulfide in water. Pharmaceutical drugs. 41 million Americans now are getting doses of antibiotics, painkillers, and psychiatrics in our water supply. The AP discovered that drugs have been detected in the drinking water supplies of 24 major metropolitan areas. Officials in Philadelphia said testing there discovered 56 pharmaceuticals or byproducts in treated drinking water, including medicines for pain, infection, high cholesterol, asthma, epilepsy, mental illness, and heart problems. 63 pharmaceuticals or byproducts are found in the city's watershed. According to the handbook, when it comes to chlorine and fluoride, the clinical toxicology of commercial products, fluoride is more poisonous than lead and just slightly less poisonous than arsenic. How did it get into our water? Well, prior to 1945, fluoride was properly regarded as an environmental pollutant. It was responsible for many lawsuits against industries, such as the aluminum industry and the phosphate fertilizer industry, whose waste products ended up destroying crops and animals. As a result of clever public relations campaigns, fluoride was transformed from an environmental pollutant to an essential nutrient necessary for producing healthy teeth. What a con job. Industries not only made millions from selling this environmental pollutant to water companies and toothpaste companies, but more importantly, it saved billions of dollars that would be required to clean up this environmental pollutant. However, there's little difference in tooth decay between fluoridated and non-fluoridated communities. Actually, poverty is the clearest factor associated with tooth decay, not the ingestion of fluoride. The American Dental Association, after all sorts of lawsuits, has now admitted that it rots teeth from the inside out and causes gum disease. Just 1 part per million can cause the IQ of a child to go down by 10 to 20 points. Have you looked at the back of your toothpaste tube on the label? If you swallow, in other words, just a little dab of toothpaste, if you swallow more than that, you need to call call the Poison Control Center. Look at what your tube says, because the average toothpaste is 2% fluoride. And if a child swallows a tube of toothpaste, she'll be dead within 2 hours. The California Health Department sent out an alert to pregnant women that drinking 5 or more glasses of city water have caused miscarriages. It's a tasteless poison, so at least the taste is fine. There are thousands of government studies showing that it eats holes in brains, destroys bones, increases bone cancer, especially in boys, by about 8 times, calcifies arteries and all major glands, savages the liver and the delicate flesh filter tissues of your kidneys. From 1990 to 1992, the Journal of the American Medical Association published 3 separate articles linking increased hip fractures to fluoride in the water. In March 22nd, 1990 issue of the New England Journal of Medicine, the Mayo Clinic researchers reported that fluoride treatment of osteoporosis increased hip fracture rates and bone fragility. They've increased fluoride now in many school systems. For example, already implemented in New York, Texas, Colorado, and Florida, more schools will soon be implementing a 0.02% solution, or 2 parts per 1,000, not per million, 2 parts per 1,000 program to get all children to consume more fluoride. This is 200,000 times more potent than 1 part per million used in our drinking water, and 1,500 times more toxic than the Nazis' concentration of 3 parts per million to make prisoners apathetic and docile. Everyone should avoid fluoridated toothpaste. Maybe the solution is bottled water. Well, bottled water is no safer than tap water. More than 40% of bottled water companies use tap water, including Aquafina, Nestle Pure Life, Dasani, and others coming from municipal water supplies. In fact, the guidelines are less strict than municipal guidelines for drinking water. Then it's sold at 1,000-fold increase in price. We complain about the price of gasoline, but if you go into a gas station and you buy one of those little bottles of bottled water, about $1, 8 of those equal a gallon. That's $8 a gallon. And in 1999, their National Resource Defense Council tested over 1,000 bottles of 103 brands of water and discovered that 1/3 of the brands contained bacterial or chemical contaminants, including carcinogens in levels exceeding state and industry standards. When polyethylene terephthalate bottles indicated by a number 1 or PET or PETE on the bottom, when they are warmed, they leach chemicals, such as antimony, used in making such bottles, into the water. Hard polycarbonate bottles, such as sport water bottles, contain bisphenol A, BPA, which the National Institutes of Health determined can cause neurological and behavioral problems affecting the brain, the immune system, and feminine reproduction systems. Also, to make empty water bottles, before you actually put the water in, last year consumed 72 billion gallons of water. That's 2 quarts of water to make every quart that you purchase. You also end up consuming 7 million barrels of crude oil. Huge carbon footprint. 80% end up in landfill, where they'll probably last for thousands of years. Closer to home, the Denver Post, Wednesday, March 13th, 2002, had an article. Government analysis shows the nation's waterways are awash in traces of chemicals used in beauty aids, medications, cleaners, and food. Substances include contraceptives, painkillers. The South Platte River in Denver is talked about. I don't know if you're aware of it, but the fish in Lake Mead now, which is so polluted, are the new fish are bisexual, and it's happening now on the South Platte. Pharmaceutical and personal aid pollutants, PPCPs, showing up 31 antibiotics and antibacterial compounds in water samples. It deforms the sex organs in wildlife, sex reversal in some fish, and declining fertility in humans. Maybe you know friends who are having a hard time getting pregnant. Back to bottled water. $100 billion a year is spent on bottled water in the belief that it's healthier, and that's not the case. Enough fuel is used to produce these plastic bottles to fuel 100,000 cars for a year. And so we have not only a problem with the nutrition in the food that we're consuming, but at the same time our body is being challenged and bombarded by all the environmental stresses and toxins that have accumulated. It makes it even more important to give your body the nutrition it's not getting so it can defend itself against the increase in attacks by all these pollutants. And so I encourage you to think seriously about good supplementation.